Sallynoggin. Get flexible finance offers with our new assurance plan.
Ian Guider, Markets Editor of the Business Post, is with us. And has the new government flexed its muscle with AIB already?
Good evening, Matt. Well, that screeching tyre sound you hear is the U-turn being performed by AIB this evening in relation to people who are in receipt of the COVID-19 temporary wage subsidy scheme and have applied for a mortgage. Earlier on this week, the Irish Times revealed that AIB had decided not to process mortgage applications, or had sent documentation to staff urging them not to process applications from people whose companies are receiving the wage subsidy scheme. Well, we received information from AIB this evening saying that there are people who are currently holding letters of offer for mortgage and are in receipt of the COVID-19 subsidy. And just to give you just some of the details they are saying in this statement, AIB say that as the Irish economy reopens and people return to work, AIB will from next week recommence accepting new mortgage applications from customers who are on the state's COVID-19 supports. However, the bank says that in line with normal procedures, the final assessment of the customer's ability to meet repayments is always made before drawdown. And in order to protect the customer, the bank, and the wider economy against the risk of future financial difficulty, AIB is obliged to ensure that all loans are sustainable and affordable. What that means, Matt, is the bank will next week again begin to accept applications from customers having been pretty much told to by either being shamed into it by the media coverage or by the state being very unhappy with the bank's performance. Look, Matt, I think you and I spoke about this before, where there had been concerns that some people were having their mortgage applications withdrawn, that there was uncertainty as to whether agreements would go through. It's very hard to say to people who have saved up a deposit and suddenly find themselves out of work or receiving a pandemic unemployment payment. And then on the other hand, Matt, you have the idea that there are people out there who may be taking down large mortgages which last 35 years and then may find their financial circumstances change. So I do have a tiny bit of sympathy for the bank and an awful lot of sympathy for people out there. But we don't want to get into the situation we had in the past, Matt, where we had in the run-up to 2008, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people taking on huge amounts of debt only to find themselves within arrears in the space of a very short period of time because the economy tanked. So I think the bank handled this very badly. I think the bank probably should have come out a bit sooner this week and did the U-turn. But I think you will probably get a bit of a sense that this scandal will die down a little bit as a result of the statement this evening.
Okay, now, who would have thought that NAMA would be providing some of the money that's desperately needed at present to the government coffers?
Yeah, not a bad cheque was handed over by the NAMA chief executive and chairman to Pascal Donoghue today. $2 billion in total is being paid over by NAMA from its profits this week to the government, and that is only half of the money the agency will return to the state. Now, NAMA has pretty much sold down all of the loans it bought from banks many years ago. It took on $32 billion worth of loans from the banks. It acquired them at a very steep discount. It has sold 96% of all of those loans. It's down to now just about $1.2 billion worth of loans left on its books, and it has generated an awful lot of cash from selling those assets, which were properties and loans here in Ireland, the UK, Europe, the United States. So it believes that over its lifetime, which it runs to 2025, it will generate a profit of around €4 billion. So the first half of that profit has been paid over to the state today. A further $1 billion will be paid next year, and then a further $1 billion in 2022. The latter will, of course, be subject to the economy recovering. NAM, of course, will be monitoring the housing market as to what's happening out there, monitoring the office market, because, of course, it still has sizable developments underway, particularly in the Dublin Docklands, Matt.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask you about. How is NAMA doing as a builder?
Quite well, actually. They had a goal of either building themselves or financing the construction of tens of thousands of homes out there. What they said today is that either directly building themselves or providing finance for other developers, they have built just under 17,400 homes, and some of them will of course have been social and affordable homes. They've also have a further 2,250 homes currently under construction. Planning applications are submitted for about 8,000 homes around the country, and they are also working on various projects, either preparing planning applications, providing finance for builders, or are involved in joint ventures with other developers to develop housing schemes across the country for around 6,000 homes. So there is a substantial amount of work to be done by NAMA. They also, of course, have the biggest building site in Dublin city centre, effectively the old Poolbeg site, which used to be the Irish Glass Bottle site, and some land around it. They are currently in talks with a small number of property developers about building out that site map, which has potential for around 3,500 homes, which are, as I said, anybody who knows that site knows it's very close to the city centre, and there aren't too many sites of that scale available. So depending on how the housing market goes, that site could potentially be a huge development underway in the next couple of years.
Now, a lot of people have been wondering how landlords have been getting on and raking in commercial rents. And Hammerson, the giant UK company, as a PLC, is required to disclose figures, which means some interesting information about two of its prime Dublin assets, Dundrum Town Centre and the Ilac Centre. What's in that?
Yeah, interesting numbers coming out of Hammerson. As you said, they own Dundrum, they also own the Ilac, and also the Pavilions shopping centre out in Swords. Well, they gave out figures today for how much rent they collected in the first quarter of the year, January, February and March. No surprise, pretty much all of their rent was collected, 99%. In the second quarter, which is when the lockdown measures really hit towards the back end of March and then pretty much shut down from April, May and most of June, just 47% of their rent was collected. Now, most of the stores out in Dundrum and the Ilac would have been closed. I think pretty much only the supermarkets, your Tesco's and other major, the likes of Boots and the pharmacies would have been open. Interestingly, Matt, rent is due for the third quarter today from most of those retailers. Now, Hammerson weren't able to give a figure for Ireland as to how much they expected to collect. However, they did get some prepayments from their UK shopping centres, and as a guide as to what may be happening here, the news isn't that good. In the UK, Hammerson would own large amounts of the UK shopping centres. They collected just 16% of their rent in advance. So you get the sense from those figures, if you read across to the Irish market, that Hammerson could be in for substantial battles and negotiations with many retailers out there who simply, many of whom would have only opened either on the 8th of June or on Monday, will have no money or have very little cash to make payments, and we'll be looking to see how retail trades over the next couple of weeks before making payments. So there will be a lot of discussions, I'd imagine a lot of arguments between major landlords and their tenants coming up in the next couple of weeks, because many retailers out there have gone to the wall. We've spoken about many of the chains that have struggled, Debenhams and the likes, in the last number of months, and there are many that are just clinging on and simply don't have the money to give back rent or forward rent to landlords.
Very briefly, just to finish off, Ian Guide, our markets editor at the Business Post. We had Eddie Wilson of Ryanair on earlier. The airline is targeting 4.5 million passengers this month as it flies 1,000 flights a day all over Europe. What do you reckon their chances of success are?
Pretty decent, Matt, or at least certainly they will have got an awful lot of those bookings as to whether people will have turned up. And, you know, getting people to fly is one thing. The other thing Ryanair has to do is get its cost base in order. Michael O'Leary talking today, he's been in the UK trying to talk up the fact that they are restarting flights today. He is telling pilots that 3,500 jobs now will go unless staff agree to that 20% pay cut. But Matt, you know, if you look at some of the credit card spending figures that have come out in the last number of weeks, not just from the central bank, but if you look at what came out from Bank of Ireland, if you look at what came out from Revolut, they all show an increase in spending on aviation, flights and accommodation. Perhaps that 4.5 million passengers, while some people will heed the advice of the National Public Health Emergency Team, there'll be many passengers who booked very recently and will take those flights. 4.5 million, Matt, would be roughly 1/3 of what Ryanair would have flown on a normal July during the summer.
Thank you very much, Ian Guide, our markets editor of the Business Post. It's time for the Culture Club next. We haven't had a politician on in a while. We have the new Lord Mayor of Dublin, the Green Party chairperson, Hazel Chu, joining us with her cultural choices after this.
The Gleam's the title of the piece by Micheál Suleiman, and just Micheál on piano there. Lovely piece, a nice recording, and that out of Culture File today. Hope you enjoyed Culture File. It was part 2, and if you would like to listen back to both parts of that, all you have to do is log on to the Classic Drive homepage, and there are details there. If you'd like to podcast, or if you're listening through the program data, the program feed, you can listen through that as well. But all there for you on the Classic Drive homepage. Culture File with Luke Clancy. Just in relation to Too Darn Hot. Yes, to the Burns who are listening to us today, listening to us from Los Gallardos, if that right, that area in Spain, and they are telling me that it's hitting 40 degrees C there. Is that right? 40 degrees C. Goodness me. You're not out in the sand anyway, that's for sure. Of course, you're probably, I don't know what the story is there in that part of Spain, but no doubt, you can let us know if you like. Or is it the same as here? Has it been eased? What's going on down there? Will we all join you? No chance of that, I'm afraid. Anyway, John and Rita, thank you for sharing that. Lovely to know you're on board today. Too darn hot is right. And I'm going to head towards Newark now with a little, well, I suppose, a push and a shove from Robert Humphreys, who's listening to us in Cork. And Bob Humphreys, as he likes to be known. And he is a big fan of the sextet from Uchida Lamore. I'm not going to play that on the program today, but I will do it for you on the program tomorrow. I'd love to do that for you, but keep on coming into us. But thank you for sharing that with us. Now, there was a request too for some Francisco Tárrega and the Recuerdos de las Alhambra, and there's so many versions of that, and the one in particular that I'd like to play for you now, with another little push from a certain area, is the one that features Segovia performing. It really is nice, and this is from Philip Kennedy, who is listening to us, and anyone else who enjoys a little guitar. This will certainly take us up to music. Newark, Gavin Fisher Shade. This is Tárrega's Recuerdos de la Alhambra with Segovia performing. If you're in guitar mode.